But council members, would you please stand for the invocation that will be given by Pastor Mark Nepo from Restore Church, and then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor, good evening.
Thank you, Mayor Wright. Let's pray. Lord, we come before you tonight with much to be thankful for. We're thankful for the city we live in. We're thankful for, Lord, the great opportunities that lie before us, the rich history behind us. God, we're also thankful for these leaders tonight. They serve, they lead. They could be doing other things tonight, but they love our community, and they've given of their time. And so, God, I pray that you would give them wisdom as they make decisions that will affect this community, this city, in the years ahead. I pray that you would give them grace, God. They serve and lead in a very difficult time. Thanks to social media, thanks to the internet, there are all kinds of ways for people to criticize and vilify those that they may disagree with. And so, God, I pray that you be with every one of these leaders as they make decisions that are sometimes difficult and sometimes unpopular. And God, I pray that you would lead them and guide them, as well as our city. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Pastor, would you come back up to the lectern, please? I know you're new, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to give us a little bit about the Restore Church and where you're located and the great things you're doing in our community.
Thank you, Mayor Wright. Restore Church is a new church. We're a very young church. We meet in the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. We're predominantly made up of young families and singles in the area. We're dedicated to reaching people that have just about given up on established church and God himself. But we are dedicated to authentic faith, diversity in community, and radical generosity. That being said, we do all that we can to be involved in the community and to get outside the four walls and to serve our community in any way that we can. So if there's ever anything we can do for the city, please let us know.
Okay, thank you, and thanks for coming. Members of City Council, please indicate your presence electronically. Madam Clerk.
There are 6 members of council present.
Okay. Members of City Council, you have before your consideration the minutes of a call meeting of August 9th, 2016, and a regular meeting of August 9th, 2016. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically.
Okay.
The minutes are adopted 6-0.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require a limit of up to 3 minutes to speak. As you approach your speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 3 minutes, you will see a green light. 2 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of your 3 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments. Public hearing 16-264. Public hearing on a proposed adoption of a resolution to authorize the city to contract a debt and issue general obligation qualified zone academy bonds, the bonds of the city, or note in anticipation thereof in a principal amount not to exceed $6,143,000 to finance the cost of a rehabilitation and repair of certain public schools in the city and the cost of issuing the bonds. We have registered speakers, but Ms. Alice Kelly, would you please?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members. We have our public hearing for issuing qualified zone academy bonds for a dollar amount of $6,143,000. The school board has passed their resolution at their August retreat for these bonds, and the City Council resolution is the last item we need to be able to qualify for these bonds. These bonds will lower our interest costs for qualified school project construction projects, and we anticipate that these bonds will be issued sometime in December. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions or comments, Ms. Kelly? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Our first speaker is Ms. Maggie Magruder.
Mayor, City Council. My name is Maggie Magruder, and I live at 111 High Street. When I saw the schools wanted the city to borrow $6 million to repair the schools, or that it was stated for structures, I could not believe that amount. First, I'd wondered, why do we not have this money in an account somewhere put aside for the repair for our schools? Usually you have this money put aside in some kind of a line item prepared to fix things like this for our schools. Don't they put this money in the school budget? They know that we will need repairs for new roofs for our schools. Don't they put money aside for some kind of a fund so that it will be there when a repair is needed? $6 million, our city is going to be in debt. I asked questions about these bonds, and I was told that it would be interest-free. Well, it's still a loan. Our city is going to be in debt for $6 million. I know that we cannot let our schools fall apart, but something is really wrong that we do not budget for this in our schools. Does our city have to go in debt to fix our schools? Something is really wrong here. We need to have a budget for these line items. We should have a better system than this. The city cannot keep going in debt, borrowing money for everything that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night.
Our next speaker is Ms. Donna Sy.
Good evening. My name is Donna Sy, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. Principle of Liberty number 27. The burden of debt is as destructive to liberty as being conquered by force. This is exactly what 16-264 is doing to we the people, forcing us to submit to a debt of over $6 million for certain public schools by issuing a bond for this amount of money. The City Council has had no regard for the consequences of spending taxpayers' money without their consent. The school board's request for funds is beyond reason. It is occurring because there is a lack of a foundation for an absolute standard to judge right and wrong. Our leaders have gone from a rule by law to a rule of men. It appears that they think this agreement to make a debt by a bond note by a majority makes something right, without that right being determined by an objective standard. Because of lack of an objective standard, we will either live in anarchy or tyranny. Our liberty cannot exist in a climate such as this. Here are examples of tyranny in Portsmouth by the leaders. Portsmouth has a strained tax base because more than 50% of the land in the city is tax exempt. This includes churches, the Naval Hospital, and the Norfolk Naval Shipyard, which do not pay real estate taxes. Other unjust actions. The city manager has cut staff and reduced operating hours for the rec center and established fees. The council balanced the city's budget this year by slashing some city departments, freezing vacant police and fire jobs, and hiking the region's highest real estate tax rate by 3 cents and an increase from $127 to $130 on each $100. The city's credit card is nearly maxed out. Portsmouth has borrowed 85% of its $716 million legal debt limit. Another problem is the $20 million project to replace the seawall that runs from City Hall to the former Holiday Inn. The Virginia Pilot article reads like a horror story. Bad budget, poor politics. The $668 million budget relies on gimmicks to paper over structural problems in the city's finances, and a move that helped close this year's $11.7 million shortfall, but risks undermining the city's credit rating. The budget slashed $1 million from the sheriff's office. It freezes $1.6 million worth of open job vacancies, more than half of them in public safety. There you have it. Our liberty has been replaced with the tyranny by the leaders. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to call on Dr. Patton or perhaps our CFO to explain a little bit about these bonds. I recall, I'm reminded when we built the Simonsdale School some years ago, we were able to get TARP money then from a presidential appropriation that was at zero interest. And so we built the new Simonsdale School for $18 million, and it actually cost $18 million because there was no interest on the loan money.
Mrs.
And I
Kelly's
see these
prepared.
as sort of the same, if you could
It is.
explain.
Ms. Kelly can explain.
And while she's approaching, that school would have cost somewhere in the neighborhood about double. So you would have paid about $36 million for Simonsdale, and we got it for 18. Yes, ma'am.
Sure. The city borrows typically for long-term projects. Over the life of a project, you want a CIP project, you don't want to pay it all cash up front. You want to pay it over the life of the project, and so you borrow for long-term projects. QZABs are a very specialized loan that is 0 to almost 0% interest, and you have to have a qualified zone academy to be able to qualify for these loans. And the city of Portsmouth has a very special academy with our Star-Based Foundation and our Portsmouth School Foundation, and we also qualify because we have over 35% free lunches in our school system. So we were able to apply for these loans. We're one of the few cities that are being able to get them. And the state actually is looking for cities to borrow these funds because they are such a low interest and can provide financing for projects that might not be able to be done. We will borrow this money. It'll probably be a 15 to 20-year loan cycle, not longer than 15 or 20 years. And, you know, it's just economic sense, and our financial advisors really appreciate us wanting to go, because this does take a little extra time to get resolutions, to get the paperwork in order. But instead of always just borrowing on the GO and paying 3 to 5%, we're paying almost 0% for these projects that, instead of having to borrow at a higher rate.
Right, okay, thank you very
Thank you.
much. Well done. All right, Madam Clerk.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing for 16-264. If there is anyone in the audience who did not get an opportunity to register and would like to speak on this item, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you will be given 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, seeing none?
Council, this public hearing is closed.
Second.
One second, that'll be on the,
Yeah,
End
we
of the
have to
agenda.
wait and do
Yeah.
that in the body.
right.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Unfinished business, 16-249, use permit. Item A, UP 16-5, Ebony Heights. Raquel Owens requests a use permit for a family child daycare home at 3511 Pier Street to care for up to 12 children under the age of 13 years old. The comprehensive plan generalized future land use map recommends low to medium density residential development. Deferred from the August 9, 2016 City Council meeting, vision, principles, a robust and prospering economy, and enhanced quality of life. Electronic roll call, and I have no speakers, but the applicant is here for questions.
Okay. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Wright, Vice Mayor Simmons, members of council. As was just noted, this is an item the City Council deferred at its meeting of August the 9th. It's a request for a family daycare home for up to 12 children. At that time, there were a number of issues that, as part of the discussion, the council had questions about and asked us to go back and take a look at them. Primarily, there were questions about the occupancy of the building, as well as some issues about vehicle parking. This didn't work here. There we go. Just as a refresher, again, this is in the Ebony Heights neighborhood. This is a front view of the house. We showed this at the last time and the location of the property. As I noted at the last meeting in regard to the number of children, this is really a two-part permitting process. On the zoning side, we align with the way the state defines these facilities, and the City Council has the ability to, via use permit, allow up to 12 children in one of these facilities. The second part of the process is when the State Department of Social Services comes through, they do the inside inspection, they apply the state's regulations, and they make an ultimate determination based on the proposed program and the space allocation, number of other factors, what the ultimate number will be. And as I had noted the last time, the state wants the city to make its determination on the zoning before they make their determination on the licensing and the number of children. So they are still, in sort of a secondary position in their permitting until the city takes action on the zoning side. I'll mention that, again, while the applicant had requested up to 12 children, again, aligning with the upper limit in our zoning code, the council did get into the discussion about the 8, and I would just point out in your packet, in the proposed set of conditions, we've already modified the proposed conditions to show the 8. So in the event the city council were to make a motion to approve and want to adjust the number anywhere off of 8, we need you to make that as part of the motion, just part of clarification, because based on the conversation from council, we believe that's what the council's interest was in, again, reducing the occupant load of the children. Just to go through a couple of the other issues, there was some discussion about the parking of the operator's van on the street. If you look at the slide up here, this is a view taken from Dunkirk Street on the far down the street on the right. I'm gonna give you a more close-up view in a second, but you can see the 15-passenger van that's parked on the side of the street down there. We just have a notation, give you an idea what the width of the pavement is there. It's a substandard in terms of modern streets. It's a 19-foot pavement width. Obviously, there are no shoulders or whatever. It's just grass on the side, and then you have the fenced-in parking lot there that goes with the post office and the shopping center that's adjacent to the street. There's a more close-up view of where the vehicle was parked on the street. Again, you can see the wheels of the vehicle, part in the grass and part in the street. At council's request, we went back and asked the city's engineering department to go back and reassess, and particularly looking at the location of this van, because that really wasn't part of our use permit review. And the engineering department said that in fact, is not sufficient street width to park a vehicle of that size on the street. We've advised the applicant that the van needs to be relocated either on her private property into her parking lot, her driveway, or off-site somewhere in a place appropriate for the vehicle, but it can't be left parked on the street. And that's regardless of what happens with the application here tonight. We, again, concluded that that's insufficient street width to park a vehicle of that size. Finally, we got into the question about what is one of the zoning requirements. Again, this is a front view of the house. You can see the size of the parking lot, driveway they have for this house, the location of where the garage is that will be converted. This amount of parking with the driveway meets the zoning requirement, which is 4 off-street spaces. And based on that, as we had noted the last time, this application met the zoning requirements in terms of parking. And we discussed the last time the outdoor play area, which is also provided within a fenced-in enclosure. And with that, be glad to answer any questions you may have, or if there's anything else that I didn't cover.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Baldwin. Mr. Cherry.
Yeah, Mr. Baldwin, did you guys take a look at anything as far as maneuverability of pickup and drop-off?
Yes, we did. In fact, let me see. If you look at this, the maneuverability, obviously you're on a dead-end street, narrow dead-end street, so it's going to take a little bit of maneuvering. There is, with the use of that driveway, sufficient space if the driveway's not full to be able to pull in and turn around. The engineering department took a look at the width of the yard right there for drop-off and concluded that right there in front of the house, there's sufficient width there to pull off if you're dropping off a child right in front of the house. If the driveway wasn't fully open to a vehicle to get off the street, you could pull in there temporarily for offloading.
Yeah, and that was our part of concern, because there were 2 vehicles in your picture, and then you had the van. And if you come to drop somebody off and there's already 2 or 3 vehicles there.
Right. And that's the biggest part of the challenge. And you're right. I mean, on this street is a dead end. That is an issue in terms of being able to maneuver, turn around, and get out without a cul-de-sac or a turnaround space at the end of the street.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Mr. Baldwin, you're saying when the motion needs to be modified to reflect the 8?
We've already modified the proposed conditions that were included in your packet tonight, has reduced that number to 8. It was 12 on the 9th.
So we don't have to do anything
Not if you want to go to 8. If you want to go back up to 12 or some other number, you'd have to modify.
Right. Thanks.
Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
So what are we doing about the I heard you talk about the vehicle and it needing to be moved, so how's that being addressed? I mean, I know we already knew that wasn't wide enough from going down there. We talked about that last week, and now the engineer has confirmed it. So what is the fix for that?
Well, there's two fixes. The first one, as I indicated, we advise the applicant they can no longer park the vehicle in the street, and they either need to park it in their driveway, or they have to move it off-site into for example, a parking lot at the shopping center, something of that nature. The rest of that becomes a matter of either if we need to put signage, it would be a police enforcement issue, putting up no parking signs on the street if we need to go to that level to keep the vehicle from being parked on the street.
Okay, Dr. Woodard?
All right. Now, this is the street that runs perpendicular into Dunkirk. Is that correct?
Go back to the map.
Okay.
So that's Dunkirk up at the top.
So the previous picture, right?
It's right here. This is a picture from Durham.
How many houses face that street? That's a city street, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I just showed the lot pattern right there. There's 3 lots facing Pierce Street.
Okay, so it's 3 houses back there.
Right. There's a third house is where the applicant has their applications. There's a couple of more houses beyond it.
Okay, because I don't see why we're making an issue. The picture you showed where the car is parked, the van is parked, and part of it is on the grass, part of it is on. I've seen a number of places where people have parked like that, and I don't think that's an issue that rises to the level of police enforcement. I heard you mention something about possible police. I don't think. I mean, that's not as if it's obstructing traffic or anything. It's only 3 houses. All of those persons who would bring children, it's not as if they're going to all arrive at the same time. And I think we're really pressing on an issue that's really not a major issue, and I hope we don't cause that to become something bigger for this person than necessary.
Well, and as I indicated from the previous council meeting, that was an issue that council had raised. From the zoning perspective, from the use permit, that really wasn't an issue with the use permit.
Right.
It was really more about the question about the van itself.
Okay, I heard you mention police enforcement. I don't think that's something that.
Well, they would police on-street parking. That's the reason I mentioned that. That's there.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chair?
My question is for the applicant.
Okay, yeah, can we give Ms. Owens? Good evening, Ms. Owens, how are you?
Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
All right, Mr. Chair?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Owens. From the last meeting, I guess you gathered that the majority council felt like 12 people and that small space was a bit much. And eight was suggested. What's your feelings on that, on an 8? 8 as opposed to 12,
I'm okay with the 8.
Ma'am?
I'm okay with the 8.
You okay with that?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. Make it up. That was my question.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, we're in the need of a motion. Yes.
Move for approval? Second.
We have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically. This item is approved, 6-0. Item B, resolution granting the request of the trustees of New Barron Baptist Church for a use permit for a child daycare center at 3600 Bamboo Road, UP 16-07. First reading vote, 5-1 approved. Vision, principle, a robust and prospering economy and enhanced quality of life. Electronic roll call, and I have no speakers.
Move for approval?
We have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically. This item is adopted, 6-0. City Manager's Report, 16-265, adoption of an ordinance amending subsection 9-26A of Chapter 9 of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, 2006, to define the term Mount Calvary Cemetery Complex. Vision, principle, innovation, and change. Electronic roll call, and I have no speakers.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. 16-266, adoption of an ordinance accepting a grant in the amount of $382,595 from the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services and appropriating said amount in the FY 2017 Grants Fund for use by the Commonwealth Attorney's Office for Victim Witness Program. Vision Principles, Sustainable Neighborhoods, electronic roll call, and I have no speakers.
Move adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. 16-267, adoption of an ordinance accepting a grant in the amount of $9,000 from the Virginia Department of Fire Programs and appropriating said fund in the FY 2017 Grants Fund for use by the Department of Fire Rescue and Emergency Services in connection with the Women in Public Service Conference to be held in Portsmouth on September 21st through the 22nd, 2016. Vision, Principles, Sustainable Neighborhoods, electronic roll call, and I have no speakers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. 16-268, adoption of an ordinance accepting state categorical aid in the amount of $44,100 from the Virginia Department of Social Services and appropriating said fund in the FY 2017 Social Services Fund for use by the Department of Social Services in connection with the Fostering Futures Program. Vision, Principle, a robust and prospering economy and quality of life. Electronic roll call, and I have no speakers.
Move adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and you will be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. 16-269, adoption of an ordinance appropriating $202,000 from the FY 2017 Capital Projects Fund from the unassigned fund balance for use by the Department of Parks and Recreation and Leisure Services to perform repairs to the Pokey Smoky Track and the City Park Boat Ramp. Vision, Principles, Efficient Service Delivery, electronic roll call, and I have no speakers.
Move adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. 16-270, adoption of an ordinance to appropriate $522,141 of Title IV, Part B, 21st Century Community Learning Centers Grant Fund from the Virginia Department of Education to the FY 2017 Grant Fund budget for the Portsmouth Public Schools, with $441,633 of said amount appropriated to the instruction classification, $5,748 in the administration, attendance, and health classification, and $74,760 in the pupil transportation classification. Vision, Principle, Quality of Life, and Lifelong Learning Community. Electronic roll call, and I have no speakers.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. 16-271, adoption of a resolution authorizing the issuance of up to $6,143,000 in City of Portsmouth, Virginia, general obligation qualified zone academy bonds, and setting forth the form, details, and provisions for the payment thereof. Vision, Principle, Efficient Service Delivery, electronic roll call, and I have no speakers.
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second, and you'll be voting electronically. This item is adopted 6-0. New business, 16-272, boards and commissions. Councilman Edmonds.
Have nothing to report at this time. Thank you.
16-273, items submitted by council members.
Well, let me first of all say how pleased I was at watching the Olympics and all of our Olympians and how they performed magnificently and represented us well. I think we had one mishap with a young man on the swim team that he made it right by apologizing. But we want to applaud all of those Olympians, and I don't know what it does to you when you see these young people on an international stage representing our country and doing their level best. And they've worked 4 years and applied all types of rigor to their workout and habits to be able to be the best at what they do. And we are extremely proud of one of our very own, LaShawn Merritt, who once again took home the gold medal. So I think we owe, let's give him a round of applause for that first. That's great. We're delighted to recognize him tonight. He's a graduate from Woodrow Wilson High School, and during the 2016 Olympics in Rio, he ran as anchor in the 4x400 relay and won the gold medal. He also won a bronze medal in the 400 relay. LaShawn medaled in 2008 Olympics in Beijing and was the #1 qualifier in the 2012 Olympic trials. We, the Portsmouth family, are extremely proud of his Olympic achievements. And please stay tuned, because this isn't it. We've got plans underway for an upcoming celebration, and we're going to do it in grand fashion. Is that right, Mr. Pace? Grand, did I mispronounce? Grand fashion. So again, to LaShawn and all of the young people that competed and represented this country, we applaud you for what you do, and congratulations. Secondly, today, this morning actually, around 8 o'clock, I had an opportunity to speak and welcome 130 new school teachers to the city of Portsmouth at what's called the New Teacher Institute. And it was fabulous, as always. One thing that did strike me out of the class, or the new incoming teachers, over half of those teachers had at least 10 years of teaching experience. And so you get a chance to mingle and talk to teachers that have gone and worked in other areas and decided to come to Portsmouth, and some have returned back here. So I want to wish them well as we get ready to kick off our new school year. And as a taste to the new ones that didn't understand how Portsmouth operates, I talked about my upbringing and in elementary school, learning the people, Portsmouth are for people, all kinds of people song that we sung every day. And our school board chairman, Mr. Claude Parent, joined me on the stage, and we sung the first verse together. So hopefully no one has a video and no one taped it, but the teachers thought it was a lot of fun. So congratulations to those 133 new teachers, and we wish them well. You know, that profession makes all other professions possible. And what they do with our young people, and what those teachers do once they close that door in that classroom in shaping minds for the future, they deserve our respect, our support, and these young people need to hear from us daily, because it is about our future, and it is about working and making this a better place. So that was great. And then lastly, our fire department, I don't know if our chief is still here or not, but Friday night we had our graduation of the academy, and I think we had 6 new graduates. They were the smoking aces. So we had 6 new graduates, and it was well done here. And it's great to see accomplishment on all of these levels, and people wanting to come to this city and do their level best. And some of them actually had a chance to speak to one-on-one of why they picked Portsmouth and what they like here. And so it's great listening to people give testimonies of why they want to come to this city, why they want to work here. And I think out of the 6, one of the young men were actually born and raised here, and I think the other 5 were from outside of the city. But again, congratulations to all of them as well. And I believe this, I've got 2 other announcements real quick, Vice Mayor, and I'll let you have the stage. We've got the school convocation. That's going to be Thursday at 9:30 at Willett Hall. We'll have the whole team back, and we'll get to rah-rah speeches out and get all of our teachers excited about starting the new year. And also Thursday night at the Founders Inn, we are having the Top Cop Mothers Against Drunk Drivers dinner that's done annually. And I guess our top cop here in Portsmouth will be competing. I'm looking over at Ursula. I think she's my date for that night, competing with all the other areas. Is that correct, Ms. Murphy? So we look forward to that. All right, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Colleagues, I would like to add an item to the agenda tonight regarding the rules of order and procedure for the Portsmouth City Council.
Second.
Okay, there's
We
been
have a motion and a second. You'll be
to repeat what you'd like to add, Vice Mayor.
Would like to add an item to the agenda regarding the rules of order and procedure for the Portsmouth City Council.
Okay,
I'll be glad to be more specific if
Okay.
you
We
like.
have a motion.
there's a motion and a second.
You'll be voting electronically.
Are we voting down that end? Okay. So, Dr. Whitaker?
Oh, press the wrong button.
And that motion has failed.
Okay. All right, Vice Mayor, do you have anything else?
No?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other items submitted by council members? Mr. Moody?
I'd like to make a motion that item be added to the agenda as well.
Second.
We have a.
What are we adding to the agenda, Mr. Moody?
Pertaining to council rules, specifically, and I'll share this with you, specifically to rescind the rule that has cost the taxpayers thus far about $55,000, and that's the rule to fine fellow council members. Beyond the monetary aspect of it, it's served to divide this council needlessly. So I think it's something we need to rescind.
Okay, that's a motion, and it has been seconded. So there's a motion to add an item to the agenda to deal with the rules in the second. Council members? Yeah, that's what you just did. I think he needs to see it rejected again. So would you please vote electronically?
And that has been denied to add the item.
Okay, all right. Okay, we're done there. Madam Clerk?
16-274, report on pending items, and we have none for this evening. 16-275, non-agenda speakers. Our first speaker is Mr. Barry Randall.
Good evening, Mayor Wright, Vice Mayor Simmons, members of council, Dr. Patton. Everybody can breathe easy tonight. I'm not here to necessarily check anyone. We have some good news tonight. Joining with me is Ms. Pam Phillips. She is the branch manager for Langley Federal Credit Union in the city of Chesapeake. Dr. Patton, this really will help your department out in reference to running the city. We just want to let the citizens of Portsmouth know I help foster a program for the Friends of the Portsmouth Library. And I reached out to Vice Mayor Simmons, and she pointed me in the right direction, and just been working hard for the city behind the scene. I don't want to wait till November when I'm elected mayor to start working for the city. I wanted to do that in advance. And basically how it happened, I don't want to take up all the time, but if you all would join, and I ask that all of you all on the throne there would join the Langley Federal Credit Union by joining the Friends of the Portsmouth Library at the branch in Chesapeake by Chesapeake Square Mall. If you give $5, the branch will match it with $5. They have given to neighboring cities, Isle of Wight County, excess of $20,000. If you all go inside the Craddock Library and see the condition that is in, we can use all the help that we can get. So I'm asking all of you all, regardless of whether you support me or not, just as the citizens of Portsmouth, if we all come together and get about 10,000 residents to join the Friends of the Portsmouth Library through Langley Federal Credit Union with $5, I believe at the end of the year, that's a $100,000 check that the Friends of the Library would get. And I think, again, this will help Dr. Patton. She won't have to necessarily look for additional funding for the library. So again, Langley Federal Credit Union, they don't have a branch in the city of Portsmouth, but now she's here because she would like to bring a branch to the city of Portsmouth.
Our commitment at Langley is to grow our presence on the south side. And at our branch, about half of the residents walking in our branch in Chesapeake live in Portsmouth. So to qualify them for membership, they have to belong to an organization. And there's about 1,000 companies that are in our membership directory. But it's exciting that the Friends of the Library are now in that directory because we have about 100 people walk in the street a month, and half of them live in Portsmouth. Over the past couple weeks, I know I'd had about 12 checks that are going out to the Friends of the Library. And I took a tour this afternoon of the Craddock Library, and they're looking forward to getting some extra funds to touch up the place. So that's exciting. So I'm glad to bring that good news to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
So again, now the ball is in your court. You all can now court Ms. Phillips and try to find a suitable location to bring a branch of the Langley Federal Credit Union to the city of Portsmouth. They're looking for nearby grocery stores. They would like to be near a grocery store or something like that. And I believe right there by I.C. Norcom High School, the food line, I believe there's some space there for rent and what have you. But again, this is a great opportunity for economic development for our city. And again, this is just something, me, the people's pastor, just working for the city of Portsmouth. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you. Mr. Chair.
I just want to say, she can give economic development. I'm sure they can find her a spot. We got some places that credit unions or banks used to occupy. It shouldn't be an issue. And by the way, I'm a member of Langley Federal Credit Union, so you can take $5 out of my account. It's only about 10 in there, but you can have 5 of it.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Ms. May Breckenridge Haywood.
To the Honorable Mayor and the City Council, I'm May Breckenridge Haywood, resident of Cavalier Manor and president of the African American Historical Society. I have several facts to discuss with you tonight. The African American Historical Society went on record in June 2014 to partner with the city for a project in which the society would be an advisory group for the Portsmouth Community Library, the first library in the city for African Americans during the Jim Crow period. That library was established during the years 1945 to 1963. The two issues I wish to discuss are the society as an advisory board and the name of the museum. The society, the African American Historical Society, and the city have a memorandum of agreement that was approved and set up so that the society would be an advisory board for the Portsmouth Colored Community Library Museum. The society has met with the Department of Museums and the city, and it has been very difficult to reach a common agreement on many issues. The society has been left out of many final decisions. The other issue is that the society voted and renamed the former Portsmouth Community Library as the Portsmouth Colored Community Library Museum. That museum name is listed as that in the MOA with the city and is signed by the former city manager, John Rowe, on June 13, 2014. Now the name of the museum has been changed and leaves out the word colored as the name of voted on by the African American Historical Society in 2006. This name change was used in the invitations recently sent out to the patrons for the new exhibit, which was signed on and opened on June 23, 2016. When I call the museum at 966-9865, the name of the museum on the answering machine is the Portsmouth Community Library Museum. Not so. The museum name as listed in the MOA of 2014 is the Portsmouth Colored Community Library Museum and is duly signed by the city manager. This is an official document. The society hopes that the issues of the society as an advisory board will be honored and that the name voted on by the society in 2006 will be honored also according to the MOA. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? I do have a copy of the MOA.
Ms. Haywood?
Yes.
I'm the mayor. I'll ask about the question. Thank you.
Okay.
First of all, let me ask you a question. It appears through our conversation, and we had a lengthy conversation the other day on the phone, that something has gone awry with the relationship and the communication between the advisory board and the department, and that's got to be fixed. You should be having periodic meetings and discussing and advising and performing your role as we established. We talked about this when I came into office in 2010.
Yes.
When we were trying to get this piece up, and it took us quite a while to come up and form this agreement that council agreed that we would have. And I would like to think that the city is operating under those terms. As an advisor, we all understand what that role is. That is not the day-to-day operation and making decisions, but there are things that you should be made aware of. The things you enlighten me on, I'm disturbed with. I ask you to get the board to send me a letter so we can act on that letter. Is that in process?
Yes, we will definitely get that to you, sir.
Okay.
And you wanted a copy of the MOA?
Yeah, well, I've got a copy of that, but yeah, and as far as anyone changing names or any of those things, we are not authorized, and no one up here has authorized anybody to change the name of the museum. Again, I would think that would be a collaborative effort between the department as well as yourself and some discussion, and that someone here on this council would have been made aware of that. So if you would get me that letter like I requested, and I would like to conduct a meeting with your board as well as the manager and our Department of Museums and see how we can reconcile this, because this whole memorandum of understanding that we put together was to enhance our history and to be able to take the load off of you guys who are trying to construct the building and get all these things upright. And my first question to you in 2010 was, why are you doing this? This should be a city function.
Yes.
This is the city's history, and we should treat it as such. And so we've got the ball. Get us that letter, and we need to find out where the drop in communication is.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate that. You will get the letter.
Okay. All right. Dr. Whitaker.
Yes, Ms. Breckenridge Haywood, I just want to commend you and the organization for how you have steadfastly attempted to maintain our history. And I would hope that, considering the history of the library, that I believe for years it sat in the parking lot of Ebenezer Baptist Church. It was abandoned. The city wasn't doing anything with it.
Yes.
And your organization breathed life back into it.
Thank you.
And it was something that was definitely necessary and worthwhile. And so I would hope that since the city had, in essence, abandoned it, and it was your organization that came forward and has maintained and brought it to the level and the concern that it is today, that there would be some significant consideration and deference given to your request of what that name should be. I know that there are documents, I've seen letters and pictures of the original name being Portsmouth Community Library. However, I do know in talking with older African Americans in the city and asking them about that library that it was referred to as the Colored Library.
Absolutely.
Also, I believe Nate Rogers, lead officer, one of the writers.
Lee F. Rogers.
Right. He referred to it in his writings as the Colored Library.
He did. In many of those articles, it was referred to as the Colored Library. Many people that come to the building also do the same thing, but in the research, it's in the news articles of colored notes that Lee Rogers wrote during the period of his time, which was 40 to 1960 something. He died in 69.
Right. So I would think the ones that value it and showed the concern for maintaining it would have a significant voice in the naming and what it meant to our community. And I don't see how that would take away from the history, but it would give it a significant point in our history in designating that this was the what was called the Colored Library at the time. And so I will hope that the city would be amenable to what you're saying. I think it is appropriate. I remember when Norfolk was building the new Booker T. Washington High School, and the city of Norfolk wanted to name it Washington High School.
Yes.
And that took away from the significance of its name. And so I would hope we would recognize the validity of what that has meant in our history and the city's history. So I thank you for your steadfastness.
Thank you. I had one more statement that I wanted to tell you about.
Briefly.
Do I have
Yes,
time
ma'am.
for that one?
Briefly.
Briefly. The word colored exemplifies that embodiment, and it would be on the wrong side of history to leave out a word that symbolizes the heritage of African Americans. When we take colored out of the Community Library Museum, it is an injustice to the past, the present, and future generations. Could I ask those people, citizens who are here on our behalf, to please stand with me?
Would you please stand? Thank you all very much for
Thank
your
you
attendance.
very, very
And
much.
Thank you for what you do. Yes, ma'am. Good night.
Our
Madam
next
Clerk?
speaker is Mark Godalda-Gutrovsky.
Good evening, council and fellow citizens. While I was on vacation, I was disturbed when I saw an article in the Virginian Pilot about the possibility of selling Portsmouth short. It's not that it hasn't happened before, but I take exception when it does. And so the South Norfolk Jordan Bridge, which has been the subject of a suit by the city to collect the taxes that the owner owes us, I don't want to see you cut and run. I want you to pursue a just adjudication if you have to go to the Supreme Court of the United States. Now, relative to the other opinion writers for the Virginian Pilot, I hold Mr. Roger Chesley in a little higher esteem than most of them. He sometimes gets things about Portsmouth right, but he definitely got it wrong this time. And I want you to know, I've never voted for Mr. Chesley to represent me, but I have voted for some of y'all. And my wish is for us to get our money. It is only fair to the other taxpayers in this city who bear the burden of paying for city services through their real estate and business taxes. If if one particular entity gets a special deal, first of all, I don't see how state law would allow that. I don't see how you could cut a deal for less than the fair valuation of the property and comply with the laws of this Commonwealth. But if there is a settlement contemplated, I would ask you to rethink that. We need to get the taxes that are owed to us. Insofar as intervention by the governor and the Secretary of Transportation, don't they have other things to do? They could be fixing that accursed toll deal that we have that Mr. McAuliffe's predecessor imposed on us. That's where their attention ought to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Our final speaker is Francis Olson.
Good evening. My name is Fran Olson. I live in Old Town Portsmouth. Honorable Mayor and City Council. Portsmouth, as we all know, can make claims to history that other cities in Virginia cannot. Many people consider the historical value of Portsmouth to be owned, as it were, by people who are white. Far from it. The Portsmouth Colored Community Library Museum is just one example of the rich history that is owned by the African American citizens of Portsmouth. The small building, restored by the Portsmouth Black Historical Society and now relocated to a site on Elm Street, is an example of the tenacity of the black citizens of Portsmouth who were determined to build a better future for their community when denied access to the white library. Now, all citizens of Portsmouth can take pride in the accomplishments of Bertha Edwards, Icy Norcom, Mayor James Hawley, and many others. Turned over to the city to run, the decision to accept this museum by the city was a wise one because there is nothing like it in the area. It can serve as a tourism focus for the city to draw African American visitors to Portsmouth. African Americans as tourists? Not likely, you say? Then why does the city of Baltimore book tours to Jerusalem, Virginia, once the home of Nat Turner, now called Cortland? Why does a local church-based youth group raise funds to bring a busload of children to Canada, following the Underground Railroad to its logical endpoint? Why do we celebrate the Maroons, runaway slaves who hid out in the Dismal Swamp during the Civil War, at the 2 rest stops along Highway 17? Because there is a market for African American tourism, and Portsmouth is missing the boat. Taking the name Colored out of the title of the Portsmouth Colored Community Library Museum neutralizes its identity. What does that building mean to anyone without letting its African American birth be known? When the library first opened under the city's aegis, there was a rich display of history and in-depth programs of the civil rights movement, Portsmouth black leaders, and general interest in programs that related to slavery as it was experienced. The library closed last February to refresh its display. The refreshed display open is shockingly bare of any content. Minimal library on the library remain, but half of the library is just white, empty bookshelves. Portsmouth needs to devote a dedicated employee with interest in African American history to developing changing displays and community programs to educate Portsmouth, Hampton, and the world. We have a gem here. Let's not squander it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Well done. Okay, before we adjourn, let me just make one announcement. We've got several questions about the fishing pier. If all goes well, the fishing pier should be completed by the end of this month. And we're hopefully planning to have a ribbon cutting early September. So to all of the guys at Greg's Bait Shack and who else has been calling us, Bill, we'll be off and running. So, and that pier is what, 350 foot long? Or is it 300? 250, okay. So again, so look forward to that official announcement and the ribbon cutting. And with that, are there any other matters to come before the body? Okay, we're adjourned. Good night.